All right, so your final project, still have plenty of time to do it. I wanted to toss it out to you early enough so that you could start thinking about it. But you will, as each module, as we move through each of the next few modules, you will get more and more of the tools you will need to do this. But I figure the sooner you start thinking about it, the better shot you have at just collecting what it is you need to learn to do the project the way you want. So for your final project, we're going to use Python to build an adventure game. If you've never heard of the game Zork, I have some links here for you to take a look at. This is the final project section that you will now find in your OneNote notebook. So you'll have everything that you need. I'm going to walk through some of these pages for you now so you have an idea what I'm talking about. But basically, if you want to learn what Zork was, this link will take you to a history of Zork. You can actually still play it online. It's all text-based. It was one of the very first adventure games, and it was text-based. Eventually, they turned it into a graphic game, but this is the original one. And this link will take you to some of the tips in case you don't really want to fool around taking some time to do it. You might be able to learn a little bit about what it's about. But it was actually very, very involved. And I do not expect you to create a game nearly this involved for your final project. It will be a simple game, but the game has to take place either in a house or on a planet or in a world of some sort of world that you create where the player can move between different areas of the world or the house or the rooms or whatever it is. And the idea is that your character in the game, your player, has to be able to move from one room to another or one place to another, generally collecting items that may or may not end up winning the game for them. You can be as creative and inventive as you want about it, but basically those are really the only requirements, well, sort of. So, but you'll learn a little bit more about this. So get familiar with what Zork was so you have an idea. So you have to create a game where users move through rooms or planets or anything that you want, whatever you want it to be in your world. And you have to be able to establish directions they can move in and a way to track how far the players moved. So that way you know where they're in. So for instance, if you say go north and north is a forest, and you say go south and south is a lake, if they're in the lake and they go north, they have to go back into the forest. So if that's the way you set it up, or you could say go from the living room to the dining room or to the kitchen or however it is you want to be, you have to be able to keep that in mind. So keep an open mind about that. These are some things you'll need to know, Python things you'll need to know to actually do this. Functions, we will cover that. It's not actually in Grok, but I'm going to cover that for you separately. So the tricky parts here, just keeping track of it all. And this gives you a summary of what's due when. Everything has to be documented on the journal page. Now you're going to have a new section in your OneNote notebook. Here it is. The second page here is this project journal. So you have to keep track of everything you do on the project. Even if you're just scratching your head thinking about it, put down the date, tell me you were thinking about the project and how long you thought about it. This is part of your grade. I want to know everything that you've worked on in the game and when you started it. I want this work to be spread out. I do not want you to wait until the day before it's due to do everything. So to that end, I need you to fill out every time you even think about working on the game on this page, okay? All right, so that's this. You have to create a story and plan your world diagram, and that's going to be due. You'll actually get a reminder again at the end of Module 21. To do that, it's due April 29th, and that's going to be done on this page. So due April 29th, you're going to write down what your plan is. What's the story? What's your whole game going to be about? So this is just an example. Mine took place inside around a small farmhouse, and the player needs to find a key that'll unlock the entrance. So that was my idea for my game. Yours can be anything you want. And then underneath it, you have to draw your world. You can get rid of this one. But in this case, my whole world just was made up of 4 different sections. And in the game, they started in the middle of the front door by a cottage. And there was a forest, a garden, and a tool shed. Once again, you can have yours any way you want, as long as you can figure out a way to keep track of it. So this information, this plan for your project is going to be due at the end of the next module. like I said, is that and reminder will be in part of that module. All right, so the next piece of this is, and it's going to be due with, let's see, module, after module 2022, it'll be due on May 7th, is the actual pseudocode or the algorithm that you're going to write. So it's kind of like coding it, but in English. The idea is that you will say what has to happen in as part of your code. This is just an example. You can get as detailed, or don't get too hung up on being so detailed that you end up rolling around on yourself. But the idea here is if you think about writing comments or remarks about your code, that those then will become the code afterwards. They'll become the comments in your explaining your actual code. But by going through it in your head in English before you start to code it, you may find that you are backing yourself into a corner, or you may find that there's things you don't understand how to do. So use this space to try to plan out exactly how you're going to write your code. Then you're going to do your code. And once again, every time you do anything on your project, go back to this project journal page and let me know. And finally, you're going to end up making a screencast of your code and your game, explaining how you coded it and playing your game for us. You can use Screencast-O-Matic, or you can use the other one we just used. It doesn't really matter, but end up pasting your URL here. And that is due May 29th, which is the last day of regular classes that we have before we go into reading day. Okay, so those are the first few pages in this OneNote section. After that, there are other pages and things that you need to see. These first three, these exercises and resources, these first three with these little exercise are actual assignments, and they are going to be given to you as part of module 22, 21, and 22, I think. No, maybe 22 and 23. You'll see. They're actually the due date is up here too. But you'll be reminded about these as part of those modules when they are released. So this is an exercise where I told you we were going to talk about functions. So you can, this explains how to do functions, and you're going to use the Python Playground to actually write a little program here, function program. And then the next module, you're going to write a program learning how to flip through functions, because you've got different rooms or different areas in your world, and you'll have to be able to flip back and forth. It makes sense to write a function for each one of those. So you'll have this function exercise. This kind of walks through, doesn't give you the answer, but it kind of walks through the process. And the same thing with this working with a list. If you are going to have them pick up things in their world, you need to understand that. So these three things, don't get too hung up on them now, because they'll be part of the next coming modules. But what I did was I put these, and it says here on this exercise, I put these here for you, so because some of you like to really work ahead or get a much better idea of what's going on. So if you want to work ahead and look ahead, you have all of this information at your fingertips now, including some video examples about making a Python adventure game, how to keep score if that was what you wanted to do, how to use random numbers if you were going to use random numbers in your game, just some things I thought might be interesting to you. But for the most part, right now, I just want you to understand what Zork is, how it works, and start to think of a story for your game that you're going to build. Keep it simple, or you're going to get hung up. There are no major requirements other than you have to have several rooms. Your player has to move through the rooms. You have to be able to pick up objects, and either having an object wins a game, or finding your way out of a room, or however you decide you want to do it. If you want to run it by me first, you can, but I trust you to do a good job with this. So you now have this final project section in your OneNote notebook. So take a look at it, and please see me with any questions. And this is a really fun project, and I hope you're going to have a good time. Don't forget that you still are going to be working through other Python concepts that you'll need for this game, but you will have those all done by the end of module 22. You'll still have at least 2 or 3 rotations to work on your project without having to add and learn any more Python code. There you go. Enjoy, and I'm here if you need me.